listening to the Decarbonisation Dialogue, a podcast from Salix.
I am Hannah Walker, and I believe that the best way to communicate a message is by being passionate about what you are talking about. Welcome to Isaac Beevor from Climate Emergency UK. Founded in 2019, the organisation aims to work with residents and councils at local level for council climate action as well as at national level. Isaac started working and campaigning in local climate policy in Metro Vancouver, managing volunteers and working on campaigns to support Vancouver's low-emission buildings policy and introducing an annual measuring and reporting system across Metro Vancouver. I also hear, Isaac, that you're pretty good at coach at table tennis, which is probably not bad experience when you come around to negotiating. So thank you very much to Isaac for joining me today.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me, Hannah. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast. And I think you'd have to speak to some of the athletes that that I help coach, whether they think I'm any good or not. But I used to play table tennis as a junior, which sport was one of the, I guess, foundational and core elements of my life when I was younger. So it provided me a lot of lessons, actually, and I'm really happy to be still involved in it.
Super. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, a little off from the sport, and let's go straight into career. Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit about your career and what kind of drives your interest in climate, and where does that interest in climate and policy begin, and how you combine those, and how you also combine those with your personal values?
To go all the way back, to think about it, it's more that I always loved nature as a kid. I would remember when some of the Planet Earth documentaries came out and watching them and being basically an avid fan of it. So, and I was the one member of the family that used to drag the whole family on bat walks and things like that when we went camping. So that was a big part of my interest and kind of in the natural world. But I think what changed for me around climate was two things, really. One was the IPCC reports that came out and what happened around the 2015 COP and everything around Paris as well. I was a student at the time, and I just remember lying in bed, probably late morning, to be honest, and reading the news reports that had come out saying, that by 2030 we really had to act. And I actually went through and read some of the IPCC report that came out. And it was kind of terrifying to be able to read it and actually understand that we were putting at risk the foundations of our society because of the actions of, burning emissions and using fossil fuels. And I just remember it was like one of those moments. But at that time, nothing changed. It was very much kind of an understanding in my head and everything that's something that's worrying and something that will probably affect my future and the future of other people, but nothing really changed about my life. And then the second thing that happened was the Extinction Rebellion protests. And I remember being in London at the time, and I was about to move to Canada. And I remember seeing this wave of action of people demonstratively on the streets calling for more climate action. And it's the first time I'd really, really seen that and actually paid attention. And I remember thinking that it was just something that I needed to get involved in. It was something that I needed to do and to take part in, no matter what that looked like. And so when I actually moved to Vancouver, I got involved in volunteering in local climate groups in Vancouver. That was something that was really important to me, and just getting involved in kind of grassroots activism of just, putting up posters for the climate strikes, supporting youth strikers, turn up to some protests and direct action events as well. And just find it that was a really crucial and formative part of learning about it. And also the fact that Vancouver sits in the on the unceded Indigenous lands of the Tsleil-Waututh, the Squamish and the Musqueam, and learning about actually Indigenous culture and how that was so different. And that was a real learning experience for me as well, and kind of to understand that different view of the world and different view of the planet. In terms of my career, that's when I really became interested in working in climate, and it was I can be quite involved, kind of touching back on sport. Sport was a large part of my life, basically one of the biggest parts of my life as a teenager. And I think that once I really interested and keen on something, then I will dedicate a large portion, or it will become the thing that I really care about. And I just remember thinking that this is the climate and nature was what I needed, what I wanted to, and what I needed to care about to make a difference in this world. coupled with those two events that kind of happened, I was like, actually, I need to start looking for this. So I worked firstly as a sabbatical officer at York Sport President at the University of York. And then that was my first ever job, like full-time gig, which was really interesting job as well to learn about and to do. And I then worked in marketing for a while, working in SEO and different forms of marketing as well. What I managed to transition into was a comms role for a small climate organisation in Metro Vancouver, which then transitioned more into direct campaign and organising roles in that organisation. It was that inspiration actually from Metro Vancouver, which was really key, because in that, what I understood and what lots of other people have said this, but what I actually understood was, if you change the environment and what we live in, you change people's behaviour. People's behaviour is defined by their environment and their constant reaction to their environment. You know, why people drive, why people walk or cycle, it's often as a response to the environment you're in. So if you change that environment, you can actually change how people behave and relate to each other, the community building, but also how, if they can live a low-emission lifestyle. So it was kind of a combination of factors, really, but that gave me the opportunity, the comms experience gave me the opportunity to switch into that role in a climate organisation.
Okay, so now Climate Emergency UK, and I hope I got that description right about working with councils and residents at local action as well as national. How can you, Climate Emergency UK, do you think you can empower people to make a difference? And how can you bring all of these people in the community in on this?
Basically, our theory of change is that you need good data to be able to inform and progress local climate action, but you also need public accountability. You can't have one. Good data is not going to change anything, and public accountability will change things, but can be strengthened through having better data. And so what Climate Emergency UK is here to do is provide that data and guidance and insights to both councils and local campaigners and residents, so that councils can be encouraged and to drive forward progress at the local level for climate action. How we're different is that we don't directly advocate and campaign at council levels. What we're here to do is support those already campaigning at the local level with further data and insights. And why it's so important in our main project is the Council Climate Action Scorecards. And what the scorecards do is they provide a comparison, and the only comparison across all UK councils on the climate action that each council is taking. And one of the key aspects of it is that we don't just publish who is the top rated councils, we publish everyone, no matter if they're really great or they're not doing so great. And that's a really important aspect of the scorecards, and important in terms of that public accountability. To put it in context, it was actually a council officer, so staff member, who turned to me and said, actually, Isaac, the two biggest motivations for councils, that were the two emotions that have the most impact, are both shame and envy. So the fact that you can compare them to each other, and the fact that they want to be seen to be the best. And that's what the scorecards tapped into to an extent. You know, there's that comparison where people can go, hey, we haven't got as strong a procurement policies on climate, but this council nearby does. And that's one of the most effective campaigning tools that you have, whether you're a local resident, whether you're a backbench councillor, whether you're the climate lead at the council. That's one of the most effective tools, is to be able to compare to someone else.
So it's those scorecards that can be used, as you say, not exactly naming and shaming, but it can be used in a positive way to actually, you want to be there, but you want to be looking good. And how hard is that to hold councils to account? That's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is really difficult. I think one of the things that we struggle with is that sometimes councils don't publish information in the best way, and just keeping on top of what happens at your council can be quite difficult. The other thing is that not only do you need to really care about what your council is doing, to be able to compare to other councils is basically a full-time job, which is why we exist. And that's why it's so effective, the scorecards, because it's the only comparison. And so people, local campaigners, councillors, officers, use it as a way to go, oh, this council's doing better here. What have they actually done? What can we take? What's the best practice? What's the learning? And what's the policies that we can copy and paste, that basically to create local and to further local climate action in our area. And so it is a really difficult job, partly because, as I said, that lack of information from councils can be problematic. But also, you know, you just face the same struggles as if you were doing it at the national government. It's the same issues. Like, councils sometimes don't want to publish the negative information if they think that residents aren't going to like it, and so they hide it away, or they go forward with schemes that other people would assume is kind of more greenwash or things, and what they're promoting. Councils are better at this than the national government, but that engagement between communities and councils is often missing, between sometimes councils getting in the way of local communities wanting to do something positive, but also sometimes councils not being able to support communities to go further and faster in the sense of their climate action as well.
Aside from the scorecards, you also, and I was intrigued by this project, you have something called the Local Climate Academy, I think. And this is all to tackle the ecological, the climate crisis, etc. And I think this is about bringing volunteers together, bringing volunteering opportunities together. Could you tell me a little bit about that? And is it really free to join? And how does that work?
Yes. So the Local Climate Academy is our flagship training, basically, where we run a course for campaigners and councillors, and we run a course for council officers, and they are both free to attend and free to partake in. So, and basically what the Local Climate Academy does, it does a little bit of background in what councils do, what the powers that councils have to affect and to reduce emissions in across their area. And then it goes into what is the best practice from councils across the UK in the different areas. So the scorecards have 7 sections, ranging from governance and finance to biodiversity and collaboration engagement to planning. And what we do in the Local Climate Academy is pull out some of the best practice examples of councils taking action in each of those different areas. And we basically train people on that. So both local campaigners and residents who are interested in pushing their councils to adopt better practice, councillors who are interested in pushing their own councils to go further and faster, and officers who are obviously working from within the council to adopt those policies. We kind of run courses and training based on what the scorecards show and the insights that they provide.
And you mentioned local residents. Is that free to local residents, or is it just free to people working in the public sector?
No, it's free for everyone that attends.
Okay, I'm going to tell my colleagues about this, because I was researching this. I thought, it can't be free. It just sounds like a super opportunity to learn more and to network and to really get to grips with a lot of these really basic issues in pushing us all forward on this agenda. Moving on, how do you think we keep the pressure on government and local councils?
I definitely think that there's been a shift in the last year and a half, I would say, away from climate being one of the main attention, or one of the kind of top 3 attention of government and councils. But I think the key thing is to remind government and councils that people really want to see climate action. Climate Outreach released their Britain Talks analysis recently, and it still showed that climate action was one of the main priorities for people across the UK. It still showed really, really high support for renewable energy. It still the projects, and it still showed really high support for policies that tackle the climate crisis. So I think that that's really key, is to show that actually it is still popular amongst the broadest swathe of the population, and actually the noise that is generated online or from certain aspects of the political arena is noise, and it's not the opinion of the people across the country. I think the other thing is that, and this has always been an emphasis around climate action, is kind of that emphasis on the co-benefits. If you look at the impacts of the climate crisis that are happening now, yes, there is the most fire that we've ever faced in the UK. Yeah, there is more dangerous and more frequent flooding, but also the climate crisis have an impact on inflation, because it's driving up food prices. That is a key. If the cost of living crisis is being caused by energy prices, which can be dealt with by clean energy, and it's also being caused by the increase in food prices, which is being directly caused and influenced by the climate crisis and events that are happening around the world, that is a key foundation of everything that we need to tackle. If we're going to kind of solve or reduce the cost of living, then tackling the climate crisis is one of the best ways we can do that, not only from cheap and reliable renewable energy, obviously based in the UK, but also by making sure that we're not making the climate crisis worse, and therefore driving up and causing food production and everything to become more unstable. And so I think it's emphasizing that the impacts are happening now to people across the UK, and how it's affecting people. from a health perspective and from a cost of living perspective, and in terms of energy bills, and also that, you know, reminding people that climate action is still popular. It is still one of the main things that people want to see their council and the national government do as well. And I think that's just the really important messages to carry forward.
Do you think, I mean, that's the key word, the important messages. Do you think we're very good at it? I mean, there's certainly room for improvement in telling those stories, isn't there?
I think one of the key things the climate movement isn't very good at is showing local people and the stories of local people. For example, I've just got some solar panels on my house, and now my energy bills are really low, and this is impacting my life for the better. I think that's a key part. And I think the messaging and the people that are carrying forward the message could definitely be improved. There is an emphasis on this and the messaging and whether we need to change like the words of net zero or climate. But to me, I don't think that that's actually the most important thing. I think it's going to be messy. There's no like message grid for the climate movement. There's no message grid for the climate movement across the UK, let alone across a movement that's across the whole world. I think what we need to do is focus on, as I said, some of the co-benefits and making sure that people understand that climate action, you know, will improve their health, will reduce costs, and actually making sure the government introduces policies that do that as well, that so that it's backed up. But then also making sure that the focus is on local people and kind of, in quotation marks, normal people who are not climate activists or policy wonks or people who have invested their whole lives in this, but someone who just went, yeah, I got solar panels on my house because it's now saved me £500 to £1,000 a year on my energy bills. And I think that is one of the best ways we can take that messaging forward, as well as pointing to the projects in people's areas and going, look at this, look at what's happened in your local area that's you know, improved things. Look at what's improved this green space or made things more energy secure. I think that pointing to it and showing the actual benefits is something that we can do.
In your view, it's the simpler, smaller stories, as you say. It's, I've just installed a heat pump and now my bills are less. The solar panels make this much difference to my energy bills, which means I can now spend a little bit more money on this, or I can have some more money in my pocket and save for the future. So it's those really simple stories, isn't it? We face a challenge in our work, actually, because we work with a lot of, we do work on housing projects. So we do see very clearly how renewables, solar, heat pumps can affect people's energy bills and comfort, basic comfort in enjoying your own home. You know, the homes aren't as drafty, or they're warmer, or you don't have to have the heat on as longer. But also we work with a lot of large projects in the decarbonisation sphere, from huge libraries to museums to council buildings, etc. And we do see hospitals, for example, how creating better environments through new technology and through renewable technology is not only better for the planet, but actually it makes the environment, it makes the leisure centre, it makes it nicer to use, it makes the swimming pool temperature more even. It means that infection rates at hospitals are less likely to be as apparent if the temperatures are better controlled. So all of that. So you're absolutely right. It's an interesting message because it's very easy for us to get carried away with a lot of data and a lot of statistics and a lot of targets. And whereas those are all important, but as often when you're on your dog walk or you're out with friends, you're talking about your energy bills and
exactly.
what you can do to make your house more energy efficient and future-proofed.
For sure. And you know, the climate crisis is a global crisis. It's going to affect every part of the world because you're changing basically how the planet works fundamentally. But someone in the UK, if you say that to them, they're going to go, so, you know, firstly the question is, what can I do? But also, like, what impact am I going to have? And so if we can tie local stories into the fact that this is something that helps to tackle the changes that have been made here, your solar panels, your heat pump, your change in diet, the way we travel, everything that we're doing is actually, you know, something that's going to have an effect. When you add it all up, is going to have a global effect. I think that's something that is quite exciting and makes people feel part of something.
It is exciting, that bigger picture. And of course, there's always the danger, though, if people look at those huge global issues and we look at melting icebergs and rising sea levels, there's always the danger that people think, I can't tackle that. How can I possibly? My recycling is not going to do the job. It's somebody else's problem. Let government sort it out. And of course, we can all play a part.
Yeah, absolutely. We can. And then one of the best ways you can play a part is by becoming active, going to your council and saying, I want to see more climate action. I want you to take this action. I want you to put forward these policies. I want you to run the solar panel schemes. I want those heat pumps in the leisure centres. I want the low traffic neighbourhoods or the school streets across my area in for your council. But then also at the national government level, making sure that MPs understand that renewable energy projects are supported, that they want further legislation that's not just Great British Energy, but, that they want the warm homes plan to be really life-changing and to be fully funded. They want things to come forward that will actually make an improvement in their lives, as you said, and in terms of their health and their outcomes, but also in terms of the jobs in the local area and in terms of creating jobs across the country. And I think, people will say, oh, what can I do about it? But there's the lifestyle changes you can make, but also there's the fact that you can go out and advocate and you can go out and have a say. Democracy. The best thing I learned from a person in Vancouver, or the thing that always stuck with me, is he said that democracy is not a spectator sport. And I was like, we don't sit on the sidelines cheering on the kind of politicians. We're actively involved through campaigning, through, calling, lobbying politicians, lobbying MPs, lobbying councillors, and also, advocating for change that we want to see. One council leader or former council leader said that from one of the best things it said, the councillors get a lot of emails saying about things that have gone wrong in the local area, which is fair enough, because I'm sure there are things that are going wrong. But in terms of making the case for positive change, it only took one email for a council leader to look at that and go, okay, I'm interested now. One email is all it would take for someone to become interested in a councillor in that idea. And that's, that is such a powerful thing that lots of people can do any time of the day.
I think that's a great message, because democracy is hard work, isn't it? And maintaining that, and we have to keep it alive. And through that active engagement and, as you say, advocacy, I actually believe that power comes from grassroots. Actually, that is where the power lies, and it moves upwards. So it's all of us, actually. It's not just the solar panels, but it's actually having a voice and keeping that voice going and using it in the right place at the right time. As you say, we've got a whole network of local councils, and that one email is a very good example. So what climate policies do you think the UK, this is a big question and we've got limited time, but in a nutshell, what climate policies do you think the UK most urgently needs in the next 5 years?
There's so much. The thing that we're focusing on at Climate Emergency UK is that there should be a statutory duty, so a legal duty for councils to act on climate, and a strengthened duty for nature as well. So we're working with Wildlife and Countryside Link for there to be, as I said, legal duty for councils to act on climate and to contribute to the Climate Change Act, but also to contribute to the Environment Act, and to take forward policies that also make sure that climate adaptation is baked in as well. And I think that's one of the things that we're pushing for, because we see that as being able to support councils and unlocking local climate action and driving it forward. In terms of the other things that I think really needs to happen, I think that one of the campaigns and UK Divest UK, really work on this is around the pension fund divestment. There is so much money still that from people's pension funds, which are basically supporting fossil fuel projects in the UK, but also across the world. Moving that money away, that financing away from fossil fuels, is probably one of the biggest changes that we can make in terms of driving that money towards renewable energy and the clean energy transition. I think that's one of the things that I would highlight as something that needs to change.
Thank you. I know we could talk about this all day, because it's just, there's a whole multitude of factors involved in all of this. Now, you obviously have a job that fits and suits your values, because you've talked about your background. But do you think, and you've mentioned, I think, solar panels, but overall, do you think you're able to lead a sustainable lifestyle yourself personally?
So I rent, so I don't have control over the building that I live in, unfortunately, in terms of making some of those changes. But I think so. I'm vegetarian, basically vegan at home. I don't fly. I've taken one return flight in the past 5 or 6 years. I don't own a car. I haven't done for 5 or 6 years as well, which helps because I live in London and the transport system here is obviously so good. But, there are aspects that have changed. It's not just something that I want to do in my job, but also obviously take that action within my own life as well. But even there's those things that you can take in your own life. I think the most important thing that I've done, and and try to continue to do is to actually spend some time supporting, turning up to protests, supporting the advocacy at the local level and also at the national level in terms of other campaigns that are going through at the moment that are trying to drive forward climate action across the UK. Supporting groups like Uplift who are pushing back against Rosebank, or the Transport Action Network who are fighting the expansion of new roads, but also promoting active travel. Going to my local council and saying that actually climate action needs to be improved here. I think that's the most important switch that I made in my life is a constant decision to be active and involved in advocating for climate action, both at the local and national level.
Super. Thank you very much to Isaac Beevor from Climate Emergency UK. And that's all about being very active and that advocacy role, which we can all play a part of. So thank you very much to Isaac for providing such insight. There can be no doubt that climate change is the biggest challenge of our time. Today, we must reduce greenhouse gas emissions to slow global warming. Today, we must act for tomorrow, adjusting our lifestyles to current and future impacts of climate change. Today, we must use our collective wisdom to deliver on our climate commitments. Today, we work for tomorrow's world. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast channels and please email us at podcast@salixfinance.co.uk with your ideas and anything else you'd like to comment on regarding our podcasts. Thank you very much to Isaac.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Decarbonisation Dialogue, a podcast from Salix. For more information about our work and to find more content, please visit salixfinance.co.uk/podcasts.